Ever jump in a pool, someone tries to talk to you, and it just sounds like muffled gibberish?
Uh-huh, yeah.
It's like you're trying to have a conversation through a wall or something.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
We all know sound like acts different underwater.
Right.
But today on the show, we're going deep, pun intended,
Mhm.
on the how sound works underwater and what that actually means for divers.
Yeah, people call it the silent world, you know,
Right, right.
but it's anything but, really. It's more like someone took the rule book for how sound works and well, they kind of just threw it out the window and wrote a whole new one.
I like that. Threw it out the window. So, okay, if it's not a silent world, then what's really going on down there? What makes sound underwater so different, so foreign to us land dwellers?
Well, imagine you're on a dive,
Yeah.
right? And suddenly you hear this faint whirring sound off in the distance.
Okay.
Is it a dolphin?
Huh.
Is it a boat?
Yeah.
Hard to tell, right? And that's because sound actually travels much faster underwater, about 4.5 times faster, because water is much more dense than air.
Wow, 4 times faster. So everything's like on fast forward down there.
In a way, yeah, you could say that. And it's not just the speed. Because water is denser, it carries those sound waves differently. Think about trying to clap your hands underwater.
Yeah, it's not as satisfying.
Not as satisfying, right?
No.
It's that density at work.
Interesting.
And here's the real kicker. That speed difference, it really messes with our perception down there.
Okay, so let's unpack that. How does faster sound equal confused diver?
We see our brains, they're used to using the sound delays between our two ears to figure out where sound is coming from, right?
Right, right.
So like a snap of the fingers to your left is going to reach your left ear a split second before your right ear,
Makes sense.
but underwater. That sound hits both ears at practically the same time.
Oh,
It
wow.
makes it really hard to pinpoint where it's coming from.
So it's like our internal sonar, our internal GPS for sound is completely useless.
Yeah, pretty much.
That's gotta be a little unnerving as a diver, right?
Oh, absolutely. You can't just rely on your ears the same way you do on land. That boat engine that sounds far off could be way closer than you think.
Oh, wow.
It's one of the big reasons why divers rely so much on visual cues and hand signals to communicate.
Right. You know, it's interesting. You mentioned how sound travels differently underwater, but we also have to think about the sounds you don't hear underwater, right? All that noise from above the surface.
Oh, you're absolutely right. It's like
Yeah.
two separate sound worlds existing on top of each other.
Yeah.
All those everyday sounds we're used to up here. Traffic, construction, even just, birds chirping.
Hmm.
They mostly just get reflected right off the surface, almost like it's trying to shout through a really thick wall. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah, like it can't penetrate the surface.
Exactly, exactly. Divers, they're tuned into the sounds that are actually generated in the water.
Right.
Things like the crunching of coral, the clicking sounds that some shrimp make, maybe even that clang of another diver's tank if they bump into something.
Huh. It really is like a whole other dimension of sound down there.
It really is. And for divers, learning how to interpret that underwater soundscape, it's crucial for navigation, for communication, for safety.
Absolutely.
It's about, really understanding the music of the deep,
Mm.
recognizing those cues, and knowing that sometimes silence can actually be the most important sound of all.
That's such a good point. It's like you said before, throwing the rule book out the window. We have these assumptions about how the world works based on our experiences up here,
Right.
but down there, it's a whole different story.
Totally.
It makes you appreciate how much we really take our sense of hearing for granted, you
Mm.
know? Just how much information it gives us about the world around us
Absolutely.
and how much we have to adapt when those rules change.
Yeah, and the next time you're by a lake or the ocean or even just listening to the rain, just take a moment, close your eyes, and really appreciate that soundscape. And then try to imagine what lies beneath the surface. A whole world of sound waiting to be explored, but on its own terms.
I love that.
Yeah, thanks.
And on that note, we'll wrap up this deep dive into the fascinating world of sound underwater.
Deep.
Until next time, keep exploring.